and dependent variables in word problems. Being able to identify which variable is independent and which is dependent in a word problem is important in understanding the relationship between the variables in a problem. To begin, let's look at the definition for each type of variable. The independent variable is the variable whose value does not depend on the other variable. The dependent variable is the variable whose value depends on the other variable. You'll notice that depend is in the name of the variable, which can help you remember that the dependent variable depends on the other variable. To better understand each type of variable, we will examine a few word problems now. Vivian is picking strawberries to make into strawberry jam. The number of jars she will be able to fill with jam depends on the number of strawberries she picks. J equals the number of jars Vivian will be able to fill with jam. S equals the number of strawberries Vivian picks. Which of the variables is independent and which is dependent? The wording in the question helps us to determine which variable is which. The question says, the number of jars she will be able to fill with jam depends on the number of strawberries she picks. Remember, the dependent variable is the variable that depends on the other variable. Since the number of jars, J, depends on the number of strawberries she picks, S, J is the dependent variable. This makes S the independent variable, as S, the number of strawberries she picked, does not depend on J. And no matter how many jars she's able to fill, strawberry jam is always delicious. Let's work through another example now. Belle is making costumes for a play. The number of performers in the play determines the amount of material Belle needs to order for the costumes. P equals the number of performers in the play. M equals the amount of materials needed. Which variable is the dependent variable? Just like in the previous example, the wording of the problem helps us to determine the dependent variable. The question says, the number of performers in the play determines the amount of material Belle needs to order for the costumes. The key word here is determines. Since the number of performers determines the amount of material, we know that the amount of material depends on the number of performers. This makes the amount of material needed, M, the dependent variable. Let's look at one last example now. Jeremiah is getting ready for a hike. The longer he expects to hike, the more snacks he'll pack. H equals the number of hours Jeremiah expects to be gone. S equals the number of snacks Jeremiah packs. Which variable is the independent variable? Notice that here we're looking to identify the independent variable. In order to do so, we can look more closely at the wording of the question. We know that the number of hours he expects to hike will influence how many snacks he packs. There is no specific keyword here, but when we think about it like this, we can see that the number of snacks, S, depends on H, the number of hours he expects to be gone. Since S depends on H, S is the dependent variable. That means that H is the independent variable here, as the number of hours Jeremiah expects to be gone is not affected by how many snacks he packs. And no matter how long you hike for, having snacks is always a good idea. Now, let's recap. When solving word problems with both independent and dependent variables, identifying each type of variable will help you to understand the relationship between the variables. Remember, a dependent variable's value depends on the other variable, and an independent variable's value does not depend on the other variable. I hope this helps you identify independent and dependent variables in word problems. And good luck!